Welcome to another episode of Lost in the Script TV. Episode 223. How is everyone? How y'all doing? Another week has passed. Hopefully you had a stress-free week as possible. As always, a lot going on again. People stepping in business. You got people of the old guard still trying to be the leader of the new. We're going to get to a lot of stuff this week. Hold on. Let me just do some things. All right, let's get right into it. A lot to get to. It's funny because for the last couple years, we've been seeing people saying that a lot of the rhetoric and the so-called ideology of some of the people online was called just online agendas, and that nobody was stepping in the real world. And the second that changed, the energy shifted. We're going to get to it, though. We got to start with somebody from the old guard right quick. Let's start with somebody who's been around for a minute and still trying to shape the culture. Let's get to this. The exclusive interview of Jay-Z with GQ. Jay-Z, this segment, I'm gonna title this Jay-Z, Capitalism, and the final nail for corporate hip hop. That's what I'm gonna call this. Because the main things that came out of this in this interview, he spoke about the year he had with the allegations against him from Buzzbee and all the other stuff. He won his case, but his defamation suit was thrown out. He talked about that, obviously, tough year for him, as he said, but the two most viral moments that came out was part of a story that just won't go away, will it? At least the people that's paying attention at all. I'm sure there's a lot of people that's moved on about the business, but it's still important because narratives are still being created and crafted. So Jay-Z did this interview. As you can see, exclusive to Jay-Z interview. Jay-Z has kept his thoughts to himself for the better part of past decade. But here, in a rare interview, he puts everything on the table, reflecting on music, business, family, and life over the 30 years since the release of Reasonable Doubt. And he obviously has some shows coming up for the anniversary of the album being released. I'm going to focus on the two topics that are the most talked about because they are connected. They are connected. So in this interview, one of the things we're going to get to, we got to ask the question, Jay, we're past kneeling Z. Like I said, he's always been somebody that's attempted to shift the culture every decade or so. He did it with the early 2000s. You hear people talking about how he's the one that tried to get rid of, walking around in sports jersey as a style. Then he came along in the late 2000s with the death of auto-tune, attacking the people who was just flooding the industry with auto-tune music. He didn't attack T-Pain. He was saying everybody was copying him. And then Wayne hopped on that song and kind of killed all that. But that's besides the point. But this is normal for him. Now, the question that we're going to ask to start this is Jay-Z a good old boy, or is he trying his best to save hip-hop from corporate irrelevance? So I'm going to start with this one right here, this clip here where he spoke about the 2024 back and forth. And it's not really about the hip-hop, the rap between Kendrick and Drake. It's not really about that. The part you should focus on is he's speaking to something bigger. And to me, he's actually talking directly to Drake, considering he has a song with Drake where he told him basically, and to just shorten the words, don't respond to people trying to diss you. I'm going to play some of this and we're going to go to it. We're going to get to it.
We love the excitement, and I love the sparring and the music you get. Mm-hmm. But in this day and age, it's so much negative stuff that comes with it they almost wish it didn't happen.
Really?
Yeah, because it's almost like it's a final thing. Now people that like Kendrick hate Drake.
Yeah.
No matter what he makes, no matter what he says, and it goes far too. It's like attack on his character and his thing and it's like, I don't know if I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's helpful to our growth.
Now he mentioned growth. He's gonna mention the elements of hip hop. And he's going to speak about this from the standpoint of evolution, basically. But the question then becomes: is this evolution or just gentrification? Let me keep talking.
The fallout lands, especially on on social media, which takes place every day.
Yeah.
And now you have these pods of cult.
The Stan armies fighting.
Yeah, and it's like it's too far.
Yeah.
It's like bringing kids in it.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't like that. Maybe I've grown in a space that is probably, I sound like the old guy wagging the finger. But I think we can achieve the same thing as far as like sparring with music, with collaborations more so than breaking the whole thing apart.
Yeah.
It could stand it before because there was no social media and there was no thing. And, you had the battle and it was fun and then you moved on.
Right.
Right now, I don't know if it could stand it with the technology that we have.
Because it takes up so much oxygen.
It takes up so much oxygen.
Yeah.
And now it's just like every day they're just trying
they're
to
still talking about it.
It's not just talking about it. Not like, yo, this song, I like this.
Yeah.
It's like trying to tear down the people's life.
Yeah.
It's like trying to, wreck this guy's marriage or this guy's relationship with his child. And it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's worth it at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that was his opinion that he gave. And once again, he was speaking towards the fandom in hip hop. Now, in this same interview, he made a point about the 4 elements of hip hop, graffiti, b-boying, DJing, and battling. And he's saying the other elements have already kind of ran its time. The DJs aren't in the forefront anymore. Nobody does graffiti anymore. And b-boying is an Olympic sport, so that means it's dead. Now, the crazy part about that is Kendrick Lamar just won a Grammy for a diss track. Let me say that again. Kendrick Lamar won a Grammy for a diss track. You're saying that b-boying is no longer a part of the culture, is no longer significant in hip hop because it's an Olympic sport and you got white people and Asians doing it. But we also have white and Asian and Indian and Arab and Spanish rappers. And so that means hip hop itself would be irrelevant now, right? Wouldn't that mean that it's already dead, the whole thing? Mr. Man says, tell Jay-Z to release the Epstein. What up, Mystery Man? But in his critique of this, he kept pointing at fandoms, the internet. There's too many people involved now. So when you say that, if white participation means b-boying is diluted, then what about music, the musical aspect? They rap. He argues that the modern ecosystem changes the, as you said, the risk reward calculation. Like, is it really worth it? He's talking big business at this point. He's talking about business, branding. He doesn't frame the Kendrick Drake battle or clash as being too lyrical or too competitive. He's saying it's too socially corrosive. That once these fandoms, once the conflict becomes identity driven, stands get in between of it, it means that the reputational attacks, they metastasize, on social media now. So now it's not just the barbershop talking about this, family members and stuff. It's now happening on social media with strangers, even though those people in the barbershops were strangers too, but it was smaller. I remember in the same interview, he made a point out when he made the song Super Ugly. And he said he didn't know it would go that viral. He didn't know. He thought it was going to be a regional thing. People that is in the city going to hear about it. He's saying in his interview, at least, that he didn't realize it would reach as far as it did, those words he used, and it wouldn't become what it did. Now, I will say, if you look at what he said after he released Takeover, which was years after the Ether came out, he had already called the loser in that battle, he was kind of saying the same sentiment about not battling. It's not worth it, which he kept it the same way on songs with Drake and Rick Ross and Young Jeezy. So he's kind of been consistent in what he's saying now for the longest. But what is the purpose of him saying it? Because it's not like family members and children and stuff, this is new or anything. Like, he's making it seem like the Kendrick and Drake battle was the turning point. Like, something changed here. And this is why the words I've been using for the last decades in the music, I can now say it in an interview, which will be always, because you have to say it plainly. You can't say it in a poetic way. You got to just flat out say it, which he said here. And it's going to stand stronger now. It has to be he has to stand on it. But in a rap competition, is brand damaging lyrics or a lyrically risky music or family exposing songs new? I'm old enough to remember I wasn't around. I mean, I was around, but I wasn't privy to the Nas and Jay-Z thing in real time. I was too young. But I do remember going back and listening to Benny Siegel versus Jada. I remember that. I remember what happened between Benny Siegel versus Jada and what they were saying about their kids and throwing them in rivers and stuff and getting people's baby mamas done in and mamas and daddy. I remember the lyric they were using in those songs. I remember 50 Cent and Ja Rule, which Ja Rule ended up making Wayne stuff, which turned into a club banger dissing another person. And we saw how that impacted his career. That was brand damaging what 50 did to him. And I was down south in North Carolina. We loved Ja Rule music. But 50 Cent did what he did, and it pretty much completely shifted his career forever. Now, we know there was some behind-the-scenes stuff going on with the labels and getting investigated and accounts frozen and stuff, but it is what it is. Mr. Man says, always the losers don't want the smoke. That's what it seemed like. Because I don't think you'll ever hear Nas come out and say this. But once again, Jay-Z is saying this for a different reason. I'm going to get to that. Same thing with LL Cool J and Cannabis. LL Cool J responded to not even a diss. He responded to Cannabis and they went back and forth and he pretty much ended that man's career. For no reason. He had no reason to do that. But he was the big dog. He won, so he's the victor. So nobody said we should stop battling because the person who had a bigger platform won. So it really goes back to Jay-Z's intentions behind this. Oh, shit. My bad. To me, his actual intentions, as I said earlier, I started with, is Jay-Z a good old boy or is he trying to do his best to save hip-hop from corporate irrelevance? It ain't no money. Do I believe Jay-Z really think or care about these people's personal lives and what's going on?
Well, we don't believe you. You need more people.
I mean, he saw what happened to him. Like, we know what happened to him. I believe it's no money. We heard for the last couple of years that these labels have been looking to put less money into hip-hop artists. And we've seen they don't curate artists anymore. They don't take the time to give somebody the training and the tutelage behind the scenes before they push them out in front of you. They just out the gate give them to you now raw. And they get these so-called viral songs on TikTok and then they disappear in 2 years. That's kind of how they go now. They just use and make a quick buck and keep moving. Which some of even the standing artists say the same thing, like 21 Savage. Which is crazy. But anyway, we see them push the Afrobeat. They told you that Burna Boy was the biggest artist in the world. We've seen them doing it with Bad Bunny. We've seen them doing it with country music on the radio. They flooding it. We see them pushing K-pop, what is it, BTS, whatever it's called. So there's less money for the new hip-hop artists because, as always, something black was always considered vulgar. It's the reason right now while the URL, Battle Rap League, they can't even put their battles on YouTube really because they don't make money. Because when these dudes get on stage and talk about shooting and doing all this crazy stuff to each other, expressive poetry pretty much, it ain't real. YouTube still flags it. It doesn't treat it like an art form. YouTube still flags it and don't let them make money off of it. So when something is connected to black or urban, it's not considered commercial. It's not considered something you can get ad money from. You see it with people with podcasting now. Look how Joe Rogan and what's that girl name? Call Her Daddy. How they able to go get hundreds of millions of dollars with their platforms. Sometimes, especially the Call Her Daddy girl saying all kind of vulgar stuff, but because she's not urban, he can go get big profits. And obviously they got the audience. I'm not saying they don't have big audiences, but that's a part of it. So even when you look at something like it's the international wave. The music industry in America has been trying to expand more international. They don't want to just bring people from other countries over here and let them get a few songs with American artists. They want that international audience to be a standard type thing. And they've been trying it for a few years. I mean, even when you look at R&B, what's the girl name? Olivia Dean. I saw her record sales. I said, in America, a British R&B singer doing these type of numbers? Oh, she up next. We already know how this is about to go with her. So I think Jay-Z is saying what happened between Kendrick and Drake could have possibly cost money because Drake going around trying to sue. So the future, even if he's gonna lose it got thrown out the first time, and he's trying to get it back in now. But there will be no future diss tracks amongst large audiences. Their entire team would advise against it. There's no point. It's not even about the possibility of losing a lawsuit. It's about no one wants to deal with the headache of paying tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in courtrooms because of these frivolous lawsuits from a hip hop battle. He said he had to convince the NFL to let Kendrick do Not Like Us. There's no support for this type of music. What I'm get from him, at least, there's no support for this at the top of the food chain. But then I got some more questions. Is hip hop evolving, or is it gentrified? I think we all would agree it'll be the latter. Because if we're saying it's evolution, I saw Glasses Malone use the argument, well, that means that Jack Harlow, when he released that album recently, Monica, then that's evolution of neo soul, right? You have to agree. This white dude from Kansas or Kentucky, wherever he's from, doing neo soul, that's a part of evolution. He's going to reach a different audience, right? He's changing the aesthetic of what that is, even though he didn't. He was trying to dress like Common and shit, but it is what it is. Is that considered evolution? But the real answer I have is I believe it's kind of a situation where you're being forced to evolve by the corporate or platform pressures, basically. I think it's a little bit of certain people in those positions have a certain ambitions to remain or maintain their positions, and they're willing to tell the other niggas, get in line. We're not doing this no more. We need to change certain things. That's the thing with Drake. He made, as Mos Def called it, he made shopping music. It was safe. It was the image he has, the music he sound, the formulaic sound he had. It's just shopping music, not threatening to anything. When you start making music that's not supposed to be on the radio anymore, then that's some people like Jay-Z, that's taking hip hop backwards. And like I said, they're trying to make the genre more palatable to big business. The urban tag has always been a negative connotation. So it is what it is. But this next clip I'm gonna show goes in line with that thinking perfectly. Kind of answers why he has that opinion. Let me show this. All right. He was asked the capitalist question.
To talk a little bit about this idea of like you said earlier, like the things that you do for the culture, the ways that you put on, the ways that you try to protect and move forward, but kind of the pushback that you get sometimes about like people throw capitalists at you in a derogatory sense.
Yeah, I think in that verse specifically, the only thing I heard coming up was the American dream until we started being successful. And it was like, wait a minute, you're selling out because you're making money. That was the first thing that was put on musicians. People had this law for the struggling artists. That's a mind game, what we would call back in the day for tricknology. It was like, no, I'm not going for that. Like, no, I make art first. And then I make sure that I'm compensated for my art. I didn't take advantage. I didn't get here by taking advantage of people. I didn't take no one. That's not my reputation.
There's nothing wrong with making money. These people who are considered billionaires who say this, you're supposed to, as I always say, hopefully your blessings match your talents. Whatever your talents are, hopefully it's maximized to full profitability. But there is a such thing where somebody like Jay-Z saying this is crazy. he's used the term black business, and he's used the trope, black people don't support black business, as a way to gain the support for his business, only to do what they say is normal in American business amongst some American businessmen, which is build it to sell it. So you build up something, say it's black, and then sell it to somebody white for a profit. The same thing we saw with what's the name of it? Versus. Shout out Tyrese and Tank. Same thing we just saw with Versus. They built it up during COVID, the pandemic, and then they decided at some point we're gonna try to make a profit. And you see, it kind of fell off a little bit.
That's not what I do. I didn't get here by taking advantage of people or taking advantage of, the loopholes in the system or some wrinkle in like a capitalist structure. That structure exists, and I just see the world for what it is, not for what I want it to be. I'm a realist, not an ideal. It's not idealistic. People speak about the world how they want to see it. You're never gonna win like that.
It's important to see the world how you want to see it so that you have a vision for it. So I disagree with that point about somebody being idealistic versus somebody being, I don't want to use the word pessimistic, but they say realistic. It's not really the same thing, but it kind of leans into the same part where the lack of hope. And I know hope is a cold game that people sell. Hope is something, we seen Obama have a whole campaign selling hope to people in 2008, and we saw where that led us. What up, Craig? He said, turtleneck. Man. Oh, man, that's crazy. I don't care what y'all said, though. I had Tyrese winning simply because he performed songs he actually made himself, not just songs he wrote. But that's a whole nother story. But like I said, this explains his battle rap opinion. It's about making money, not cultural brownie points. Winning a battle, you get to say you're the best. It's not about that. It's about profits. And Jay-Z is known for telling you, I'd rather be overrated than underpaid. Like, he'd rather be overrated than underpaid. He don't care about what you think of him as long as the numbers add up at the end. But in this, he's framing wealth building as cultural expansion. Now, that's how you build a culture up, just making money. It's not about making sure certain things are gate kept, making sure there's a certain level of quality control. It doesn't matter what we allow. Like, should we allow stuff like drill music to be made so easily and be able to be accessible to the everyday person? Do you need somebody in position to say, no, this music, you got to put this on some other platform. This ain't going on these streaming platforms. This is not going to be too mainstream, publicly accessible. We need some level of control over this. He's saying that ain't what it's about. Get your money. That's how we expand the culture. And to him, that's not exploitation. So a label going into a neighborhood, or better, I'll say it this way, because I'm not going to make them out to be some villain. People are coming to them. A young black male growing up in a certain environment, experiencing certain things under certain circumstances and stuff, making certain music that gains popularity and it probably shouldn't, goes to a label because his song is viral, gets $1 million check to continue to make that music, even though it's detrimental to his community and to himself. More than likely, he'll be dead in 3 years, and they probably got some type of insurance on him, where they'll profit from the insurance on his death with his contract, and they'll get a bump to the deal they signed with him because his music was streamed more because he's dead now. So he got on the song, dissed his ops, profit. Then he dies to his ops, we profit. And then we get more money because he's dead and the streams go up. That is exploitation. And you're a part of that. I'm not saying Jay-Z's part of that, because I'm not saying the people he signed are from that lifestyle. So there is a certain level of quality control with at least who he is allowed to be underneath him. But overall, there definitely is a certain level of exploitation. Hell, I can say that you exploited Kaepernick. Kaepernick took that knee, and regardless if you believe he's a real activist, if you think he took the knee because he was about to lose his starting job anyway, he was trying to find a way to extend his chance to be in the NFL, that's your opinion. I've heard a lot of people with certain opinions about Kaepernick thinking he's a fraud. Okay. But you can't say, at least since then, he's done real activist stuff. He's helped children in poverty. He's helped with all type of resources to people in need. So regardless if it was authentic in the beginning, he's had to at least keep it up since then. So he's done some real help to some people. But he sat there and took that knee. Jay-Z was with him, with the knee. And then he went and did a deal with NFL and said, we're past kneeling. So, I mean, you exploited Kaepernick's attention. You leveraged Kaepernick's activism to gain a job. So you can continue to be a gatekeeper in the industry. You're the epitome of a capitalist. You capitalize on every opportunity. It is what it is. But anyway, let's move on to the next topic. I want to ask this last question with that. Well, I don't have to. I already answered it about people building from within. He this whole idea that he went to the NFL to leverage that to get more black people or hip hop in general more of an opportunity on the Super Bowl stage. I mean, it's still to your benefit, so not really. I want to play this next one too. Azor, what's up? This is the post-mortem. Nas declared it nearly 2 decades ago. It was definitely a collaborative effort and conspiracy. Yeah, let me show this here now. Let me show this, y'all. Hold on. Usher stands by Diddy while the world watches closely. I'm not surprised by this. By the way, I seen it just expose Chili. I don't know. I'm bringing this up because I'm looking at Usher right now, and it just came out and said Chili's a Trump supporter, which I just found hilarious. She been donating to his campaign and everything. She even apparently liked some type of post calling Michelle Obama a man or something. It's kind of crazy out here. But Usher came out and defended his man, his mentor. He's saying, look, man, he ain't all bad as y'all make him out to be. He's done positive things for the industry and for creators and entrepreneurs. Let's play a little bit of this.
This might be a bit controversial, but in the same way, I think many people choose to look past the reality of what our country is, the standards that we now stand on. We can't ignore the reality of the history, but in many ways, I think certain people are prosecuted and maybe not recognized for the greatness, that they offer. I don't have anything negative to say about Sean Combs because my experience was not what the world has seen and how he's been, misrepresented. I'm not saying that every man is perfect. I'm not saying that all of us don't have flaws, but I can't, with any sense of humanity, not recognize the valuable contributions that this man made for us as Black entrepreneurs, for us as businessmen, for us as people who transition, culture and ideas into something that's tangible and becomes business. So many people benefited from what he created. And I acknowledge that. And that's why I see him as legacy.
Yeah. You told Shannon Sharp you learned a lot about business during that era.
So the complaints about Black ICE agents, I would expect to see complaints this year. Nigerians are flocking to work in Texas prisons. I had another post about remember in Illinois, Chicago said they were going to allow DACA recipients to be hired as police officers. Yeah, carry around weapons. But I saw this post right here too from this dude, Pastor Ben Dixon. I ain't seen him in a minute too. He popped up on my timeline. And what he said was insane. This is a so-called pastor. He said, I pastor for free, but I sell drugs before I work for ICE. And the assumption everybody came to was, so you would sell drugs. I would assume you're saying you would be a drug dealer in the Black community. You would sell drugs to your own people before you work for ICE and deport people who aren't your people. You rather destroy your own than do a job that every country does. That every country has these laws, but for some reason, if they're enforced in America and you do anything to participate in enforcing them, you are an evil person. These people backwards. These people crazy. I don't I'm not surprised at this point. Like I said, especially online with social media, it's a lot of virtue signaling. It's a lot of people that's lying about their true beliefs of certain things, and they're trying to get likes and clicks and engagement. And so saying that you're just okay with any immigrant being in the country, it's just the thing to do. Like I said, you see a kind of crazy story. There was a story recently that came out. One of these immigrants, Uber drivers, killed, sexually assaulted a black mother. He was he was her Uber driver. He ended up assaulting her and killing her. But you're not supposed to pay attention to those stories because, you know, you're supposed to be defending the immigrants. And if you bring it up, you're wrong. And you're helping the white man, apparently. You're helping the white man bringing up some immigrant killing a black mother, but it is what it is. Next up, let's get to this. Cardi B says Latinos wouldn't be living comfortably in the U.S. if not for African Americans. Don't gotta read the article. That's pretty much what she said. She said it. I do want to show the actual clip though. Let me play it.
Come through, come through, come through. So Miss Cardi B went around saying to Latino fans that they wouldn't be living comfortable in the U.S. without African Americans fighting for the civil rights. Shout out to Cardi B. Shout out to the African Americans. You know, they did the thing. I guess Cardi B might need more Latino fans by saying this. I don't know what it is, but let's not forget, Latinos have a long history of supporting African Americans in the fight for freedom and equality, notably assisting enslaved people in escaping to Mexico via Southern Underground Railroad.
It's funny he say this because the reason that happened is because the Black Seminole Indians and the Black freed, the Black enslaved people who ran off with them to Mexico, they went there and had to free themselves. One of the first presidents of the country was a so-called mixed man. As they say he was mixed, I'm saying that he wasn't. A mixed man who became the president, who was the one who ended slavery, and then he ended up getting assassinated by his fellow Mexicans.
Mexican abolitionists worked to secure freedom and for thousands while in the 20th century, Latinos partnered in the labor movement and civil rights activism. Some people seem to forget that Latinos also fought for the African Americans. So if it wasn't for Latinos, nobody would be living comfortable in the United States. And one more thing. In the 19th century, Mexico served as a crucial sanctuary for thousands of enslaved African Americans fleeing the South, acting as a Southern Underground Railroad. But because Mexico abolished slavery, the government and its citizens welcomed runaway slaves, offering them freedom, land, and citizenship. Shout out to Mexico, because if it wasn't for Mexico, nobody would be living comfortable. If it wasn't for Mexico, African Americans would not be living comfortable. So shout out to the Latinos. People seem to forget that and just want to give one ethnic group props and not the other one.
And that right there is the greatest point right there. For some reason, when someone gives credit to Black Americans, these groups get really offended. They get really offended at the idea. Now, the fact that he's comparing a few thousand Black Americans and Black Seminole Indians that went to Mexico to the millions that's been coming to America and benefit from civil rights that Black Americans are the ones that fought for is crazy. I see the same thing happening when people talking about the Black people who went up to Canada, the thousands, by the way. They talk about the thousands that went down to the Caribbean islands or even over to Africa. But the reason why there's millions of you here and able to be comfortable is because of the people who actually stayed. They always they don't like that truth for some reason.
Cardi B saying that if it wasn't for Black people, Hispanics or Latinos wouldn't be living comfortably in the United States, it's a bull of crap. Because you're talking about the same Black people who campaigned to have us deported all last year, the ones who said we're gonna sit this one out, we owe our comfortability to them.
Yeah, the people who watched y'all try to force the United States government to recognize you as white, then you saw how effective the civil rights movement was going and decided to start to refer to yourself as the brown person of color. Before so, you was trying to be white. So yes, those people.
And I'm sorry, but the only people who Latinos and Hispanics, illegal immigrants or any kind of immigrants owe their comfortability to is to the hard work that they put in.
The hard work of traveling across that border illegally. That's what your benefit. That's your you earned that comfort by coming over here, most of you at least, illegally. That's how you earned it. You come over here. I'm not even gonna get into it. I'll say this. I do wish on some level, at least this wasn't a black person that said it. This was Cardi B who said this, and a few people decided to respond to her. But I am looking at a situation where sometimes you don't need to say something. We already know the truth. And you just pay attention to those who acknowledge it without you having to say it. To the other groups that decide to make sure they distinguish themselves from you and make it seem like you were really no benefit, this is always what it was going to be. Just let it be. And do what you were supposed to be doing now, as he accused black people of doing last year, which is sitting this one out. That's why they really mad about those black ICE agents too, boy. That shit puts a fire underneath them. But anyway, I want to show another quick story. Hold on. This is a history. This is a little bit of history. Hold on. History and lies. Let me show this. So this is the ADL X or Twitter page. It said today marks the 40 years since Leo Frank was posthumously pardoned, a significant day in ADL history, very significant. Frank was lynched by a hate-filled mob in Georgia after being unjustly convicted of murder in a trial marred by anti-Semitism. May his memory be a blessing. So Leo Frank, 1884 to 1915. So this is a very important story in the history for the ADOL, for Jewish people in this country. It was a big deal that turned into proof of extreme anti-Semitism in America. Now, when you go to this Leo Frank's person's wiki page and try to find out stuff about him, they have certain things blocked from you being able to even read. But there's articles written about him where people are saying he was not lied on, that he was guilty. And this proves to me there are so many groups that build their platforms off of anti-blackness. Let me show this right quick. 100 reasons Leo Frank is guilty. Now, this is a case about a young 14-year-old girl who worked at a job for this man here. He was one of the leaders of this job, and he ended up allegedly attempting to assault her, and it led to him strangling her to death. Mary Fagan was a 13-year-old. She was a sweatshop laborer for Atlanta's Georgia's National Pencil Company, exactly 100 years ago today, Saturday, April 26, 1913. Little Mary, picture the artist's depiction, was looking forward to festivities of Confederate Memorial Day. She dressed gaily and planned to attend a parade, yada, 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 told her whole life story. Now, this is Leo Frank, the Jewish guy who's accused of killing her. Leo Frank, who was the head of Atlanta's Banal Brith, y'all should know what that is, a Jewish fraternity order, was eventually convicted of the murder and sentenced to hang after a concerted and lavishly financed campaign by the American Jewish community. Frank's death sentence was commuted to life in prison by an outgoing governor, but he was snatched from his prison cell and hung by a lynching mob consisting of a large part of leading citizens outraged by the communication order, and none of the lynchers were ever prosecuted or even indicted for their crime. One result of Frank's trial and death was a founding in the still powerful Anti-Defamation League. That's literally how you got the ADL. Today, Leo Frank's innocence and his status as a victim of anti-Semitism are almost taken for granted. But are these current attitudes based on facts of the case, or are they based on a propaganda campaign that began 100 years ago? Let's look at the facts. It has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that either Leo Frank or National Pencil Company sweeper Jim Conley was the killer of Megan Fagan. And this is Jim Conley. So in this story, this guy was a doorman. He just sat by the door, the black guy, Jim Conley. Leo Frank had his office. According to Jim Conley, he was told to come early that day of work to go sit by the door. He was told to come in early, and he did. Now, along with all this, they said apparently the girl was killed in the building, and then she was left in the basement in the building. Now, they're the only two that were there. But Leo is the only person that was with her alone, and he said he was the only person, that he was the last person to see her pretty much in his office when she came to get her money. I'm talking about this because with all the stuff that went on with this case, they saying that the dude, Jim Conley, was changing his story. There was a death note left for some reason. I don't know who would leave a note after something like that. A death note was left, and the guy Leo said it's his. It's his death note. He's the one who did it. But if I'm not mistaken, the guy Jim Conley was illiterate. He couldn't write. So how did he? The KKK came out and defended this black dude. They saying you're lying on this dude. There's no way he did it. But this case turned into what created the Anti-Defamation League. It was something. It's a case that they used. This Jewish dude. This is all alleged. This is a Jewish dude allegedly trying to pin a murder on this black man. Was proof of anti-Semitism, so much so that it led to the Anti-Defamation League to prove anti-Semitism in America. It's so crazy how when you look at every single thing in this country, how much of it goes back to something involving a black man or a black woman. Like all of it is somehow impacted by a black person. Good or bad, it's always somehow impacted by a Negro was there. It's crazy. But this article here went through the whole situation, pretty much saying they have without a doubt believed that he 100% did it. And just looking at it, I didn't have to read the whole thing. Just looking at this, the setup of it, how they said it happened, the facts of the case, the corroborating stories from certain things, it's kind of obvious that this Jewish dude tried to lie on this man, but it backfired. Now, he was sentenced to be in prison to hang. Then they got it down to life, like they said in the article, because they had money. They ended up just going into, the KKK and all them just said, we don't care about none of that. And they went on in and killed him anyhow. But that case is still being upheld as some travesty to their community when it's a high chance that man was a flat out liar. It's just crazy. And speaking of the KKK, I'm just going to read this headline. Don't got to go too deep into it. Ku Klux Klan items were found as Mississippi Department of Public Safety packs to move. So you go through this article, they tell you what they found, all type of items, propaganda, and all that type of stuff. Internal records. Which we've been saying for years, the people who are so-called who were in those cloaks, those white cloaks of the KKK, it was your doctors and lawyers and judges and your store managers. It was the everyday people that was under those masks. And every few years, there's some stash that's found in these government buildings or in someone's mansion home, one of these big plots of land that looked like it was a damn plantation. They always find these I guess you call it, they'll call it memorabilia. They'll put it in museums and stuff. But Mississippi Department of Public Safety officials stumbled across the cache of Ku Klux Klan material while cleaning out a closet to move to the department's new headquarters. Inside a small blue suitcase, they found a handbook for the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, the most violent white supremacist group of in the 1960s, which carried out at least 10 killings. That's the ones that's recorded. We know that. Officials also found Klan charters, a Klan robe, KKK recruitment material, propaganda, meeting notes, a ledger, and list of members who paid or didn't pay their dues. So with the names, you know how we talked about this before, how if you're found to be a Nazi, like truly a part of the German Nazi organization, no matter where you are in the world, no matter how old you are, if those Israelis find out, they would track you down and they will put you in prison for your crimes. They would try you for your crimes and put you in prison. You could be, we've seen cases, they were 99 years old. They still put them on trial and put them in prison. If they were a part of this group that is connected to, at least on record, 10 killings, shouldn't those names be, those people be tracked down and they shouldn't there be something done about it? Is you just going to leave these names to be not public and move on with your day like this ain't a big deal? Their comparison would be Nazis. They were going around terrorizing people, but it's America, so they'll move on with their life like nothing happened. And it is what it is. As we saw with many cases throughout this country where things get proven without a doubt, and it's just America. We're going to get to America and its decisions in the next segment, too. We're going to get to that. All right, hold on. Before we get to too much of this, I want to play these two videos right quick. There's some things that should be pointed out a little bit more that we're kind of ignoring. Let me play this.
Along the border, including the Al-Marj outpost opposite Merkaba, and carried out drone strikes on the Al-Raheb site near Aitar al-Shab. Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and admitted.
You know how crazy this is? For a man to dodge a rocket on camera.
Near Aitar al-Shab.
I can only imagine.
Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya.
I can only imagine being a kid. The different, your brain chemistry got to be different. To grow up in a area where bombings are so normal, like the Middle East, it's been so normalized in that region. It used to be Europe, and then they finally got their shit together and decided to have some level of peace. But they've been in the Middle East for the last couple decades, last 50, 60, 70 years. And it's just turned into a complete war zone where this is like a normal life for these people. But I'm seeing a lot of people saying how Iran is winning something. And you're seeing Israel get bombed, and you're seeing reports come out that Vance, J.D. Vance is coming out saying how he's on the phone cursing out Netanyahu because he told him this would be an easy win and yada, yada, yada. I just can't help but always recognize when this is all a play. We don't know anything about American military because the stuff they show you is stuff that's decades old. So when I see people online saying how Iran is bombing the hell out of them, they winning, like, look, boots on the ground. I think America is just not a country that's that. I'm not saying America would lose or whatever to those countries, but we saw when America put boots on the ground, it's not really about winning. It's really about just putting boots on the ground to be there, to have a presence. With Afghanistan, it's because they were growing them poppy fields, making all type of drugs and sending back to America. But I just get the feeling that this is like some opportunity for them because Israel has a lot of bad, terrible press. The tides are finally turning where people are not blindly just supporting this poor little nation in the Middle East. The internet has exposed too much of them that they're using this as a way of, this is like you get to see the bully get punched a little bit. The person who's been in the Middle East bullying everybody, you get a chance to see them get punched on a little bit, bleed a little bit, broke a little bloody nose, busted lip. And then when it's time to end this, it'll be like, all right, enough. You gave them enough. If you get rid of Netanyahu and you pin all the Zionist stuff on him to say that all the attempts at expansion into Gaza and all that stuff is on him, even though there's people that's worse than him that want that position, it's like they feel like the heat will go down. They'll be able to go back to regularly scheduled programming. They just show Israel getting punched on a little bit. I ain't buying none of it. But then we get to this. Because this is still being written. This is March 17th, 2026. Like, man, what do we call ourselves? Rethinking Black identity in America. Don't got to read the article. We've been speaking about this for the last couple years. And this mono Black culture that's been trying to be pushed on everybody, where everything is the same and everybody's the same. Well, no, everybody has ownership or participation in one culture, but that particular culture needs to know that everything they do come from somebody else, and they need to be grateful. They need to pay homage all the time. So the national debate over Black identity is accelerating. Are Black Americans a racial category, African American, FBA, or distinct American people? So somebody posted this right here. Someone did an entire breakdown of all the so-called diaspora wars over the last couple years. They put it in order from who said it, what was their background, the Pan-African versus whether they were now Black nationalists, whether they were just regular civilians, were they complaining about these so-called spats and debates, or were they encouraging them, what years they happened, what it was about. It's a lot going on. They got tweets as references, a lot of stuff going on in this, but I want to show one thing in particular, if I can just find it. They put down a timeline of all this stuff. Here you go. Of all this going on. Hold on. And I just want this image here. Hold on, y'all. I just want this one image. Well, they're showing these this timeline. As you can see, they started this all the way back in 1921 with Black Wall Street. And they went to all these pivotal moments throughout Black history or any type of history. So the real start obviously is 2019. I would say that's not really when it happened. I'd say the first start was definitely 2015 when Yvette and Tone came out and said Kamala Harris ain't Black. And there was a lot of people that was disagreeing with that. That was the first one, actually. But this is 2019. Netflix, She Gotta Have It, with Diaspora Wars feature. Because in the show, they had a viral clip that came out of it. And then they went down the timeline. 2019, Cynthia Erivo plays Harriet Tubman. Then they went the Black Lives Matter of 2020. I remember when the Nigerians came out after the protests over the summer, and they were chastising Black Americans for not speaking about the SARS movement that was going on in Europe, which is funny how parallel Black Lives Matter and the End SARS movement, how that became kind of synonymous, because we saw what they did with the money here in America. They ran off with the bag. And then, if I'm not mistaken, in SARS, just like Black Lives Matter was ran entirely by women, they ended up running off with Bitcoin. So both of them was able to get some money out of it and, leave their people for dead, really, move on by their ways. Keep said from the 70s show, the Feds. But then it continued. Michael B. Jordan, the appropriation thing with the rum carnival. They shut that out. But before that was Juneteenth in 2021, when Trump, not Trump, but when they made it a holiday to be seen. I think that was Biden that did that. Then before that, the Cardi Richardson, when Jamaica and America went back and forth like crazy. It's crazy how what's going on with Sha'Carri Richardson too. But anyway, they went through all these dates to show all these moments. And when you read this whole thing, if you care to, all they pretty much tried to do through all of this is try to paint it as it's not. I'm gonna say from what I read, it seems more like they was trying to pin more of it on Black Americans, even though in most of the stuff they showed was more so responses than somebody who just all out trying to start something. But I want to show on the back of that, these so-called debates. This is a few weeks ago. I meant to show this like 3 weeks ago, but I ended up not doing this part of the segment. Joanne Reed, I think I showed one clip from the show, but I want to show this one. I'm gonna show this one right here.
Saw as being civilized.
Yes.
But being civilized meant just cutting yourself off from indigeneity. And so, which is what you're seeing, like people who are from Europe that go to Israel try to reclaim, right, and steal back. But what Black people have is sort of a natural indigeneity. Like we're just naturally indigenous people. Yeah. The food we eat, the rhythm, the dancing, the music, the gospel.
It just comes out.
We just took it. Like we take, spiritual songs and music and turn it into gospel.
All right, well, who did that? See, this is what I was talking about this Black monoculture they're trying to push. It wasn't we that did gospel, that out of Negro spirituals, out of hymns. It wasn't we. It was one particular group that did that.
I think that's a spiritual, physical experience, and that's an indigenous vibe. And so that vibration is common to everyone Black, whether you're in East Africa, West Africa, Caribbean, Brazil. All we need is to try to get over some of the phony, false separation that Europeans actually used to steal us. And it was a tactic to steal us. And as long as we fight infighting, they can keep stealing us.
It's funny how we're going to talk about this in a second, how they continue to push this stealing idea, and somebody created a division amongst people. And this is just not true. But I understand this is their agenda. This is the Africa 54 podcast with Godfrey. I've seen a lot of people kind of flipping on him too, based off the comments he's made. And with this, like I was saying about this monoculture, it's led to a lot of pushback now, physically, and people are on the streets now. I'm gonna talk about this later, because y'all been saying for the longest that some of these talking points and all this other stuff was just online. Even though if I told you some of the stuff my mom, my aunt, my uncles said growing up about just their views on certain things, it was a lot of the stuff was the same. They didn't use the exact same language because they didn't have the same framework politically, but they said some of the same similar stuff you're hearing now from these people online. And now we see these people in the real world out on the streets protesting. But I want to show, what else I got here? Yeah, this right here too. This is going to be a topic we're going to talk about when I get to this next segment too.
Y'all know how I feel about my mother and my father's here. Your pops, where you at? My dad came in from Ghana. He flew in from Ghana to be here. My brother, my sister's here. My family. I want to thank Warner Brothers. I want to thank.
As he talk. Yo, mama, what's up? No, I figure they can't talk, say, yo, daddy, what's up?
I'm not even gonna lie. Is comprehension, like, lost in Africa? Is it lost? Do they not have comprehension? And I'm not even trying to be funny. That man said his dad flew in from Ghana. He didn't say that his father is from Ghana, that his people are from Ghana. No, his father currently lives in Ghana, but he's not originally from there.
So a few weeks ago, this became a thing. And I'm showing this because we now know, at least in my opinion, we know why he said this comment now. We know why Michael B. Jordan, other than the business reasons that his father has, we know why Michael B. Jordan got on that stage and said, my father flew in from Ghana. All this stuff is connected. And these people, these things are just in place they have this agenda they're trying to push for about 20 years now. And they're about to push it even harder. Unfortunately for them, in the midst of this campaign they've started, a change of heart came. The number one person they got to hate, they run around talking shit about Tariq Nasheed and how much they hate him. I'm going to keep saying it. The person y'all really should hate is Javette Carnell and Tone Talks. That is the person who those two people just threw everything. They threw everything off. They messed up a lot of the plans they had planned coming up soon. Verbal altercation. El Monte City Council members postponed debates on data centers, sanctuary law. This woman who says she's running for Congress, this Black woman, was in city council meeting. This is what I supposed to show last week, but I ended up not doing it. One of the people in there, Hispanic, called her the N-word, and all the other people in the room who were majority Hispanic didn't do nothing. And so she's angry that this person said this to her, and nobody is coming to her defense. And as I said earlier, they're not your friend.
When I saw that bitch said nigger, so everybody sit there and let him say nigger to my face while I beat his motherfucking ass. What's your company?
Milan Publisher Clearing.
Okay, so did you wake up today a racist bitch, or were you one yesterday? So why did you say nothing when your motherfucking employee sat there and said nigger in this motherfucking meeting? Why did you say shit? Did you want to speak up for a bitch? He's a grown ass motherfucking man, and I wasn't calling you. But since you speaking up for him, why you didn't say nothing when he said nigger? Huh?
Because he doesn't care. When I saw that the Chicago City Council meeting, it was a group of Hispanics in there, and obviously a group of Black Americans, and how in the midst of them leaving, the Hispanic man turns around to the Black Americans and calls them lazy. And then I see what happened with Jasmine Crockett. She lost her race, and you see how much of the Latino vote she lost. And then you look at the numbers in California and in Texas. You see the numbers growing throughout some of the places in the South, like Georgia and stuff. They don't have to placate to you anymore. They outnumber you in very important states when it comes to voting. Some of these people don't feel the need to kiss your ass no more. They're being real with you, more real with you now in political spheres, not even just in the social spheres where they can talk crazy on the streets and stuff and you can handle that. They're letting you know, and when it comes to politics, we're done with this. We need you. We're done with this idea of Black and brown. We're showing our face now completely. So yes, man can call you a nigga to your face in front of all these people, and they're gonna go about their day like nothing happened because they don't care. It's over. They done with it. What were they calling it a few months ago? They were saying the Black fatigue. No, it's just they feel like they got enough influence and power now. They don't need to be friendly with you anymore. They can be very honest about, we're trying to help ours. We don't give a damn about yours. We see it happening in places like Texas and California and those type of cities where we had a story where the Hispanics took over the job agency and wouldn't hire or send any type of Black people to these jobs. They would say, no, send Hispanics only. Deny all the Black people. They're just being blunt with it now. They're not hiding it. Matter of fact, let me show this one right here. Let me show this.
This is motherfucking California, aka baby Mexico. The jobs is hemmed up. The people at the jobs, the secretaries, the managers, the hiring managers, every fucking store I go into is Mexicans in there. It's no Blacks, it's no whites. So stop telling me to go out and find a fucking job. You think they gonna hire me? Yeah, if Bijou, if that last name seems Hispanic, maybe it could get me through the door to an interview. But once my big lip Black ass come through that door, the job ain't for me. The job is for Francesca, for Maria, for they fucking people.
Now, this woman's on soft white underbelly, so that's more than likely you know what her background is, because he only has certain people on the platform, and he's a creeped out dude too. So she said it. So I'm gonna show another situation that happened. This is in Fresno. A woman won $15 million because of racial discrimination, where her boss called her the N-word and called her an entitled Black bitch. And she was ready to walk away with $15 million. Let me play this one.
We look at the huge number, but nobody looked at the huge price I paid to be at the city and work as a Black woman in the city.
It's
and
money,
being
Black
the only
woman.
Black at that time. And that number still is not big enough for me of the time that I lost with my children and my family that I could never get back.
The city of Fresno never took this case seriously. They fought it for over 7 years in court, and we finally had our day in court and justice prevailed.
The public's going to think what they want to think anyway, but I hope that they realize that justice was done here today.
We won on the harassment claims for both of them. We won on certain...
She back there kikiing too. She won $15 million. These cases still amaze me. And in 2026, y'all are still doing this dumbass shit, costing your city cities millions of dollars. We saw it with I can't remember if it was Elon Musk's company, I think, or in California, where there was a lawsuit because the Hispanics on the job site at the warehouses and stuff. Maybe that might have been Amazon. I can't remember. The Hispanics on the job site were being extremely racist to the black people, referring to the area they worked in as the plantation, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And those people were able to win a lawsuit as well. And it's funny. All this is in California. That's why it's funny. I saw a post from a dude who lives in Northern California saying that, oh nah, a racist Hispanic thing, that beef is only in the southern part of California. We don't really have that in certain parts of the north. It's like, no, you just outnumbered, so you're okay with the disrespect. You just act like those people are allies of you and allow them to indulge in certain anti-black behavior because you outnumbered and you just try to cope with it. All throughout California, you see stories like this in Texas, in New York, in Chicago, and you see stuff like this up here in Washington. It's not as loud up here because the majority ain't Hispanic or whatever, but these things happen all over the country, and you still looking for an ally with these people. Let me play a couple more of these type of stories. Hold on.
I live in America, but I can't get a job in a native English speaking country because that's the only language I was raised speaking. You noticed before I moved to Dallas, I thought it was diverse. It's actually very Hispanic heavy out here. Cool, understood. And most of the jobs out here want you to be bilingual. Again, understood. But I didn't grow up bilingual. I'm black. Never said I wasn't willing to learn Spanish. I just feel a little discriminated against because I can't get a job in a field that I'm pretty proficient in. I do my job well, but I don't speak. Never said I wasn't willing to learn, and they don't even offer training. And I know a little bit to get me by, but in a native English-speaking country, I can't get a job because that's the only language I speak. Make it make sense.
It's funny because they're going to call this woman using white people talking points. I saw there was a city council channel from like 15 years ago out of Illinois. It was a small little white town. And they have these the YouTube uploads of all their city council meetings, crazy stuff. There's some funny stuff that happened. And part of the biggest returning constantly every week when they showed up, one of the biggest debates was the influx of Spanish-speaking people who won't learn English. Have not tried to learn English. Been in the country for 15, 20 years, do not care to learn English ever. And so they was throwing newspapers in the people's yards that were completely Spanish because the population had gotten so large that they had to give you an English and a Spanish newspaper. So obviously this is kind of petty. The white people started complaining and saying, what the hell, well, I don't want this trash, this junk in my yard. But it's gotten to a point now where a person who grew up in this country, in certain parts of the country, you could say it's a border city, it's a border state. So in a border state, there's going to be an influx of people from Mexico. You should know that it's going to require people to be bilingual. But no, it shouldn't. If you go to somebody else's country, you should be willing to learn their language. As she said in this video, she was saying how if she went to Brazil, she would have to learn Portuguese. Like, I'm not going to be in Brazil for 3-4 years and not know any Portuguese. I'm going to have to learn it at some point. But when you have a government and you have a whole party talking about the Democrats that are willing to just let you do whatever you want to do because we want your votes. And then we don't get them anyway, especially when you talk about places like Texas. We don't even get the votes, but we're willing to tell. I remember, what's her name? Anna Kasparian, how you say her name? When she told, what's her name? She was saying how that, black people in these areas are having a tough time getting these jobs because they're not bilingual. And she said, black people need to learn Spanish. She said, niggas need to learn Spanish. We ain't got time to, they are a bigger population now. Joe Biden, as disrespectful as he was in that meeting with those black people, he told you need to worry about them. You need to be worrying about the Mexicans. You need to be worrying about how you're going to deal with that. So it's definitely coming to fruition. It scared a lot of people, as I said earlier. That Jasmine Crockett race, just the voting numbers of the Spanish, it scared a lot of the so-called black liberals. They started talking a little bit different, like, oh, snap, we might gotta speed up this black migration to the South because we got to build our numbers up somehow because we getting ran out in a lot of these places. It's like, hey, man, it is what it is.
I am so sick of these people coming over here not speaking English, like not a lick of English. My Lyft driver just left me at my second stop. I had 2 stops. He left me at my second stop. Came outside, he was gone. If you don't speak English, I feel like you should not be qualified to do anything pertaining to customer service. Like Lyft, Uber, I'm tired of it. How are y'all maneuvering without speaking English? They just...
You got to deal with the Spanish people with Uber and stuff. You got to deal with the Indians when it comes to any type of call service.
Look at you, or they make noises like they understand you. It's so irritating.
Now, this was just funny.
Annoying. It's so irritating.
He talked all that and watch what happened.
You not understand your job. How did you leave me at the second stop? Hello. So what do you do about my Lyft driver left me here? Excuse me? Never mind.
He don't even speak. He don't speak English. Imagine I just want 2 stops and go home. The man leaves me. Another person comes. He don't speak English either. Frustration. Oh man, the entire system is crazy. As I was looking at this, speaking of the migration thing. So when I saw this, I was surprised by North Carolina. And it being, at least this is 2025, where Americans move. This is just for that year. So you see the states in red, that is the states that everybody was moving out of mostly. And the states that's blue is the states people were moving to, obviously. So you see, what up, Honorable? You see, Alabama, South Carolina being the fastest per capita growth last year is kind of hilarious. South Carolina had a lot of growth. Seeing Alabama, Tennessee, I feel like I know who's moving to these 3 places here. Because Alabama, especially in this economy, when you talk about cheaper living expenses and stuff, land and stuff, you can't get no better than Alabama. So that's why you see an influx of people moving there. So, hey man, and Texas too obviously is still growing because it's a big state. All the tech jobs went there, and it's kind of it's not really what was happening with Atlanta. It's this being going on in Texas, but I can't help but notice how many people are leaving New York and California though. They are running for the hills. It's been like 4 straight years now. They've been running for the hills from the place. So what type of growth? Is it New Yorkers relocating? Mostly. Most of the people moving to South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama, I would say that's black people from up north. Or I'm not gonna say all, obviously, because I'm not saying majority of those people are black, but I'm particularly speaking on where I think in these states is black people. Those are definitely the 3 states the black people are moving to. I've heard people in real life say Alabama is a place they would go. I had a cousin, like, what was that, 3-4 years ago? He moved to Alabama. He ended up leaving. I guess it wasn't for him, but I had a cousin move to Alabama from North Carolina, and he ended up moving up out of there. But yeah, Craig said, "What the fuck, moving to Idaho?" Now we know who's going to Idaho. Idaho is the Christian, I ain't gonna say white nationalists, but just those people that's looking at the demographic changes in these coastal cities. And because what's going on the coastal cities, New York, California, because of what's going on with those cities, how the prices are going to the roof, the living expenses are so crazy, people who are from outside of the country, immigrants, are now moving to middle America. So even with Tennessee and Alabama, a lot of those people are immigrants, whether it be from Africa, Caribbean countries, or Mexicans and Latinos or whatever. So it ain't just black people. A lot of those people are immigrants moving to the South and to the Midwest and to the middle of the country now because, yeah, like, you put it like this. When you see these places right here, Iowa, Illinois, Kansas City, all these places, white people are leaving because the immigrants are coming there, and they are going to North and South Dakota. They're going to Idaho, Wyoming. That's where the white people are going to get away from the immigrants. So, oh boy, which is crazy because The people who live in California voted for those politicians and those policies, don't like it, are not going to Texas, going to the South, and all these other places. And they're going to vote for the same people in those states. And most of those states are red. So you got the people from blue states moving to red states to turn them into blue states. It's crazy. Honorable says new Latinx cities. Nah, I don't think it's going to go smooth in the South. Like I said, if I told you the opinions of my family members, aunts and uncles, when it came to them in particular, I don't think it's going to be smooth. Although I can't say that because the city I grew up in, the little town I grew up in, whenever I get an update on it, I always notice it's a lot more Hispanics in the area. So we'll see if they try to take that over too. Now to the big kahuna. I want to get to this. The real main topic of this. All right, let's get to it. It's led to a lot of uproar. UN votes to recognize enslavement of Africans as the greatest crime against humanity. On that, there's no way we can see that part right there, just that, as a bad thing, no matter who brought it to the UN, which is obviously Ghana. The Ghanaian president, John Mahama, he's the one who Ghana is trying to lead the charge on this, and it's pissing a lot of people off. You know, this segment, reparations, the UN and global responsibility debate. Now, as I said, we as Black Americans, we have to have some level of, we gotta, when it comes to politics, because in most things in life, we have the ability to finesse. We are the original finesses, I guess you could say. No, we're not actually. Well, it depends on how you look at the world and time. But anyway, we got to learn to finesse in politics a lot better. When things are done that you disagree with, but there are certain things within it you can use, you got to finesse these people. Like, I understand West African kingdoms were heavily participated in the trafficking of people. That's just true. They still trying to rewrite it and lie, but that's just true. So I get it. To have Ghana trying to frame the transatlantic slave trade as a crime against the enslaved, their descendants, and the participants on the continent, that's where they're going to get a lot of pushback from a lot of people. I get it. Honorable said untouchables were hurt by the claim the most. I agree. I saw there's a woman who pop up on my timeline from time to time. I'm not following her, but she was able to frame this in a way that I thought nobody else is looking at it that way. Like, she made sure to point out exactly what Honorable said. The main people who are going to be angry by this is going to be the tiny hats. This is on the books, on the record. I think 123 countries agreed. I think like most of abstained. In America, Argentina, and Israel, they voted no on this. I'm gonna show y'all what the United States came out and tried to frame it a different way, try to make it seem like, oh no, this is why we said no. But let me just play some of these videos of the meeting. I'm not gonna play this whole thing because 8 minutes. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit, and I'm gonna play some of this now.
We're enslaved, and as a matter of course, our own humanity. Recently, someone asked me to explain the importance of the resolution on the declaration of the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity. And I responded without pause or hesitation, and I'd like to share what I told him. This resolution allows us as a global community to collectively bear witness to the plight of about more than 12.5 million men, women, and children whose homes, communities, names, families, hopes, dreams, futures, and lives were stolen from them over the course of 400 years. I speak these words today not only for Ghana, but also in solidarity with the rest of Africa, the Caribbean, Latin America, and the wider diaspora, and indeed all people of good conscience throughout the world. This resolution is a pathway to healing and reparative justice. This resolution is a safeguard against forgetting.
I do like that he said that, because you know to never forget people. You can't tell people not to never want to forget this. Honorable says there is nothing to finesse their claim position than the West. Their claim position than the West Africans as the victims, but centered the harm of Black Americans, historical events, the over other groups. Well, you can't finesse, because you just had the entire world recognize what happened to you was the greatest crime against humanity. Now, I know when they say that, they're not just talking about Black Americans, they're talking about, obviously, global. But you now have that the United Nations, by vote, agreed with that comment. So nothing else really, we can push back on all the other stuff. Like I said, the framing that this was some atrocity that happened to them rather than one that they participated in. And I'm going to point out why that might hit them in the head later on, how that might actually come back to bite them. There's no way you're asking for restorative justice when you it's going to come out. Like America in particular is going to make sure you admit your part in this. And that's going to lead to where the trick happens. That's when you're getting tricked out of your spot at that point. Let me show the response that America had to this resolution.
The United States remained steadfast in its opposition and condemnation of historic wrongs that resulted from the transatlantic slave trade, the trans-Saharan slave trade, and all other forms of slavery.
He made sure to mention them Arabs. He made sure to mention their ass too.
We remain committed to the acknowledgement that these historical wrongs. Despite this, the United States observes that the text of this resolution remains highly problematic in countless respects. Consequently, the United States cannot support the adoption of this resolution. We regret that the United States must once again remind this body that the United Nations exists to maintain international peace and security. It was not founded to advance narrow, specific interests and agendas, to establish niche international days, or to create new costly meeting and reporting mandates. This resolution does all three. The United States has defined long-standing objectives to the framing of reparatory justice and the duty of reparation for historical wrongs. While we acknowledge the horrors of the past, we do not accept this resolution's assertion that historical facts from the 15th through 19th century constitute violations of jus cogens, as the term is understood in contemporary international law. The United States also does not recognize a legal right to reparations for historical wrongs that were not illegal under international law at the time they occurred.
It wasn't illegal.
In addition to its obvious legal problems, this resolution is also unclear as to who the recipients of reparatory justice would be. The drafters and supporters of this resolution seem to believe it is them. The United States strongly objects to the cynical usage of historical wrongs as a leverage point in an attempt to reallocate modern resources to people and nations who are distantly related to the historical victims.
Distantly related. So they pretty much said exactly what you expected them to say. America is never going to formally apologize and admit that type of wrongdoing on the books, because that would make restorative justice a real possibility. But Ghana, West Africa in general, and you got the Caribbean countries. I've seen clips of him saying, they're working with the Caribbean leaders and the reparations push and all this other stuff. And he's saying, I'm gonna show the clip of him saying what they're actually looking for out of this. Before I get to that, I want to show this little funny clip at the UN from Mr. Mr. Benjamin Crump.
Thank you, and good afternoon. As Black America's Attorney General, a title conferred upon me by my mentor, our civil rights leader, Reverend Al Sharpton, and other Black Americans.
So Benjamin Crump just referred to himself as Black America's Attorney General. The ambulance chaser. I shouldn't be using that term, but I'm sorry. It's just, come on, bro. Now I got to show what Al Sharpton had to say.
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that I'm going to be very personal in the sense that I came to the UN 30 some odd years ago with a great African leader. I was part of the delegation with Nelson Mandela when he addressed the General Assembly about sanctions in South Africa. I come many times since then, and I'm here today because I believe another great African leader, President Muhammad, is raising.
You know, when I look at Al Sharpton Jr., Reverend Al Sharpton Jr., I always wonder, at some point in your life, how does it feel to know that everything about you, for the most part, has been symbolic? That you have all type of scandals attached to your name and stuff, but everything about you is just symbolic, not anything tangible, really. When you look back at I wonder if he look back at his life and his achievements. Do he look back and see somebody who is this great man who did all these things for his people and got proof of it? Or is it just a bunch of platitudes and, you know, preaching and voice waving to constantly just put your people back to sleep and act like you're doing something for them? But anyway, back to the main topic. What do they want out of this? What do they actually want? Do they actually want reparations? What is it?
One of the key reasons raised by the United States for which is India abstaining is the lack of clarity on who is the recipient of the reparatory justice. What is your response to that?
That is surprising because we have, in this resolution, talked about frameworks which will put in place that will take care of the consequences. We all know that the consequences of the transatlantic slave trade has been the lack of opportunity, discrimination, the degradation of people of color. So we have said, let's have frameworks that will serve as endowment funds to support education, to support empowerment, to support skills training, capital for entrepreneurs, and all of that. And we have made clear that African leaders or Caribbean leaders are not looking for money. It goes against our conscience to seek to profit from this. We don't want any payments made to us directly. We are talking about courses to deal with the structural inequalities.
And you heard that right. He used the term people of color.
And we are also talking about the return of artifacts.
So now they're people of color. They're Black. They're also African. They are indigenous. Before you know it, they're going to be referring to themselves as Negro. They're going to take all of it. Watch.
Facts to the continent. It's all in the resolution. There are thousands of artifacts from Egypt all the way to the Ashanti Kingdom in Ghana. Those artifacts should not be returned on piecemeal as and when those who are in custody of those artifacts are in a good mood. So we have outlined what must be done and to whom these redress should be addressed to. So again, it is totally wrong for a claim to be made that there is no clarity about who benefits from reparatory justice.
So the man said he don't want your money. He's not here for money. I see people all on social media saying, Black Americans saying, we don't need your help. This does not help us. This is not a benefit to us. You guys trying to spearhead this reparations push at the international level. This does not benefit us because that's not what we need that fight at. This has to be lineage based. It has to go to targeted people who actually whose descendants actually are descendant of people who actually went through these things, which obviously makes sense here in America. But with Ghana trying to spearhead this and the critiques coming and the people on their ass, I've seen a lot of the Pan-Africans making the arguments that how could you possibly be against somebody doing this at the international level? Like I said, anybody who do this is doing the white man's business a bit. Is doing this because they're bootlickers. You guys are brainwashed. You're coons. And I just keep saying, like, it amazes me that people who have that ideology, how they consistently ignore sometimes just common sense things. It just doesn't make sense. Amber says, meanwhile, China is over there building slave amusement parks. Exactly. So these people are trying to double dip. I'm going to show this video here of a Pan-Africanist from last year. The elder had some comments too when he was talking about Joe Biden. This is not last year. So this is a few years ago when he was talking about Joe Biden sending money over there.
What about reparations for the sons and daughters of Africans in America? What about African Americans? We've been appealing to you, Mr. President, for months to create the H.R. 40 Commission by executive order.
Whatever happened to that, by the way?
It borders on disrespect not to respond or act in the affirmative. In the memory of John Conyers, the late, great John Conyers, and the appeals of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who was the lead sponsor on H.R. 40.
So I'm going to say that again.
What about reparations for the sons and daughters of Africans in America?
So they understand the difference. They just be lying. So as I said, the vote happened. U.S., Israel, Argentina voted against it. I want to show the overarching, whatchamacallit, as you can see, declaration, the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement. As you can see, all the countries that voted to abstained and those that voted against and for. So obviously you see places like Australia, Austria, Albany, those places said, we abstaining from this vote. This ain't got nothing to do with us. Estonia, Croatia, Canada. Canada, by the way, the ones that been getting on social media calling anybody American racist and bigots, and how America is got to deal with so much racial things going on, and yet Canada, they didn't agree with this. Oh, little Canada. All right. I want to show this here. This is where the hypocrisy kicks in. This is why people people just not agreeing with this and them trying to be the face of this and stand up, in this type of case. This right here. So all the way back, this is why I say this is like a 20-year plan. This has been something that they've been putting into works for years. As I said, we now know why Michael B. Jordan got on that stage and said his dad came from Ghana, flew in from Ghana. Because the bridge between, or the attempt to build this bridge between particularly Black America and Ghana is built on hope and dollars. That's it. It's all about money and their economy and building themselves up structurally through that relationship. Like I said before, they need to build up level of influence. They built relationships with your politicians, your so-called Black leaders. We went to your entertainers and celebrities. We've made them, helped make them some money. That's pretty much all they did. Come and do a photo op with us. And now we can speak for you at the UN. This is 2006. Ghana apologizes for its role in the slave trade. Country's 50th anniversary includes tourism campaign. Notice the apology in 2006 in this headline. The apology was tied to the tourism campaign even then in 2006. Then you got the apology that happened in, 2022, 2019 or something like that. And we got to show this whole thing. We know the video.
The cruelty.
Where the tribal leaders came out and apologized and said, we sold people for umbrellas and shit.
The inhuman treatment that were committed 400 years ago by my ancestors during the Atlantic slave trade.
So we know that one already. Then this is just 2022, Ghana to formally apologize for its role in the transatlantic slave trade. Now, this is twice they've done this already. Now, obviously, 2019, I think it was when they started the Back to Africa. The year of return. I think that's when they started at 2019. The year of return, and that's been the thing going on for the last few years. And as Howard brought up earlier, do I have that? Hold on. Yeah, I got it here. In Ghana, the number one, I guess you say, tribe or community that was benefited or profited from slavery was the Ashanti tribe. As a matter of fact, there's another tribe they used to war with to control the coastal areas. The coastal areas where they ended up building the slave castles and stuff. Now, they wanted the coastal areas because they wanted to do business with Europeans, whether that be slave trading, gold trading, minerals and spices and stuff. They needed access to the ports, to the coastal areas. Now, they'll tell you that most of the slave castles and stuff that was built on the coast were built by the Europeans. So they pretty much took over the land, sold it to them to build property on it so that they can then sell them to slaves at those ports. That was a big part of their economy at the time. I wouldn't say the only thing they did, but that was a big part of it. Let me show a little bit of this one.
The transatlantic slavery, people think that the people that were taken to the Caribbean were mostly Ashantis. No, it was actually the Ashantis that were capturing people. So they were capturing people from the north of Ghana, other places, the Salaga market. Yeah.
So what he's saying, if you ever talk to a Jamaican person for the most part, and you ask them about their lineage history and stuff, they will tell you that I'm Ashanti. Most of us are from the Ashanti tribe in Ghana, in Africa. But what he's saying is, you're not Ashanti. You're not an Ashanti tribes member. You're not a descendant of the Ashanti. More than likely, you were sold by the Ashanti. That's not your peoples. They're the ones that sold you, actually. Adam says, does no one find it strange that those of us that chase the year of return to Africa delusion, visit West Africa and always end up in East and South Africa? It's funny. I got a cousin on my dad's side that lives in East Africa. Funny enough, he moved there a few years ago. It's been an up and down experience for him, but he didn't go there to go to Ghana though, or for that situation. This was years ago. He went. Somehow, you're right. He kind of ended up in East Africa. But yeah, the Ashantis, the Jamaicans that refer to themselves and think they're part of the Ashanti kingdom, descendants of it at least, is more than likely you were sold by them.
So they catch you from the Salaga side. They walk you down all the way to Cape Coast, where you take your last bath.
Wait, you walk all the way from the north.
I'm telling you.
Are you kidding me?
So that is why.
You are making it up. It's not true.
I'm not making it up.
That's pretty much the story he was telling, revealing that bit of information, which is funny because I showed a clip two weeks ago of some people in Ghana saying there was no slavery, that the people who left, they wanted to travel. They wanted to see another land. It's like, all right, you can keep lying. Now, this story I don't have to get into deep because I have a whole video I did on it. I think this is the second video on the channel I did about the Kingdom of Dahomey and King Gezo and what he was doing with the Portuguese slave trader out of Brazil, whose father was Portuguese, obviously, and his mother was a slave. And then he grew up to be a slave trader. Matter of fact, I got his name right here, Francisco Felix de Souza. His family to this day, I've said this multiple times, are still in political power to this day. It's from the 1840s. He was a slave trader. As you can see, Felix de Souza was a Brazilian born in Portuguese colonist and a slave trader who was deeply influential in the regional politics. He founded the Afro-Brazilian communities in the area that are now part of the countries and went on to become the Chacha of Ueda, a title that conferred no official powers but commanded local respect in the Kingdom of Dahomey. He was jailed by one of the kings of Dahomey, but then helped Gezo ascend to the throne in a coup d'etat, which gained Dahomey independence from Uyo and became Chacha to the new king. Honorable says they are picking what type of Africans they want to be. That's all very strange. Yeah, it's funny when I see Black Americans who get into Pan-Africanism and be like, yeah, I did my DNA test. I think I'm from the tribe of da-da-da-da. Like, bruh, that's... If you follow the theory that every last Black American that came to this country came from West Africa, that means it was scattered. It was from all over the western side of the west side of Africa. So you could come from... You're an admixture of a bunch of tribes. So you would never be able to directly tie yourself, especially if your ancestors came over here, mid 1800s, even though slavery was supposed to be abolished, but people were still getting traded from slavery. If your family came over here in the post 1840, it's going to be impossible for you to be able to directly trace that. But anyway, so this dude, to this day, he's held in high regard. His burial is inside of a house, and they go and they praise him. As a matter of fact, the Sousa, do I have it? The Brazilian community still exists to this day.
In Nigeria celebrated the culture and identity of their origin.
These are the Brazilian people who ended up coming back to West Africa, coming back to Nigeria, actually, from Brazil. So when the Sousa was coming, he was bringing not just slaves back and forth, he was bringing these Brazilian, so-called Brazilian Black people back over to Nigeria, and it's created a whole community. And then obviously, once slavery ended, some of them came over on their own. There's a whole Brazilian community in Nigeria.
In Nigeria are descendants of freed Afro-Brazilian slaves who left Brazil and settled in Nigeria.
That's why I found it strange when ISO Speed went on his Africa tour and he went to Brazil. He went to Nigeria. I was surprised they didn't show him these type of communities that exist over there. I was like, damn, they really hiding this shit. They don't care to show this at all, do they? But that just goes to show that they have very strong ties to the slave trade. This is all in the books. I'm not saying nothing new, but the argument I've been seeing the last couple of years, once I came to this understanding when I was in my late teens, early 20s, when I stopped believing the lie that Negroes or these Africans were just walking around in the jungle with a grass skirt on, and these white people just threw a net on them and dragged them to a boat. That ain't how that happened. The first couple decades of the slave trade, yes, there was a lot of warring, there was a lot of territorial fights, and it wasn't easy for Europeans to get access to the slave trade. I wouldn't say they were necessarily fighting the slave trade. They were fighting over who was going to be the one that run it on the continent. You had these warring tribes going back and forth, and the people who were captured were normally sold off to the Europeans. They tried to say there was a bunch of raids that happened from the Europeans. That might have happened somewhere on the coastal areas, but there's no way they was going deep into Africa. They just can't. It's part of the reason why America or the West in general don't send a lot of boots on the ground to Africa now, because that environment is not made for them. They barely can make it inside the Middle East. But posts like this right here, I've seen this dude right here make this argument. He said, this is a Ghanaian man, I assume. The Black Star of Africa is what he called himself. He said, everybody around the world was fighting wars to expand their kingdoms around the globe. Africa war is where you draw the line. I know most of you think all Africans are the same and probably speak the same language. No one thinks that. Then someone said, that is my point. Everyone back then did the same thing. Everyone heard the Roman Empire, the British Empire, and so on. Where is the smoke for those empires? They enslaved everyone. When I see these Africans make this point, why would I have smoke for Romans that enslaved other Europeans? What would be I don't understand. Yeah, they grabbed a couple Caucasians from the Caucasus area. They grabbed a couple. They had some Roman, some of the Roman slaves end up coming from normally the north of Africa, sometimes East Africa and stuff. But they were dealing with the Vandals and all those other people. If you want to believe those were white people, I'm not gonna get too deep into that. But why would I have any smoke for them? The British Empire don't get smoke. They're known as the biggest colonizers in history. They literally touched every continent. What are you talking about? They don't get smoke. Why would you not expect the group of people that were affected by the trade of their ancestors from your lineage to not have something to say to what's going on in your country now. It's I don't understand. But this notion that we should just be okay with it because other people did it is insane, but not surprising. It amazes me how fast these people start sounding like white people. Like in this same comment section, the man posted a picture of Mr. Smalls. I forgot his name. You know, the black dude who went to court to fight to keep his slave. That they even using his picture for the last 20 years to prove that black people were just the biggest black Americans, I'm sorry, were just the biggest slave traders in America when it wasn't that many of them, and majority of them was doing it to buy their family out of bondage. So it's not the same thing. But they started posting pictures of black Americans owning slaves during that time, and you go, that's what white people do. Why are you using a handful of these people that did this as a critique on the entire black American nation to justify what yours did? It's crazy. And as Honorable was talking about earlier, with what they're doing, Benin is building a theme park to remember slavery. I think we talked about this before, how they're turning it into amusement parks. They're I saw one video of a woman saying that they want $100 million so they can redo the castles and stuff, you know, bring them up to modern standards so they can turn it into a way for tourism to make money. So we're going to sell you off. We're then going to get colonized. We're then going to bellyache and say, hey, man, we were done wrong and they need to pay us back for slavery, even though you participated in it. In the midst of that, you're also going to create an entire tourism industry to profit from what they did back then when they were indulging in the slave trade. All right, man. So I get the pushback that people are giving the Ghanaians and all that stuff, but like I said, some things you gotta, you know, I just say, take the meat, leave the bone. So you can chastise them for wanting to be the head of this, but there is a benefit to certain things being recognized on an international level. At that point, you cut everything else off, but that's still a benefit. I want to show this too. June, Return to the Motherland 2026. So now they're doing Juneteenth in Ghana. Oh, man. But this is that cultural, is this supposed to be a part of the cultural exchange they talk about? Because I know they do carnivals in certain places in West Africa as well. It ain't just them copying what Black Americans are doing. They do carnivals as well. But this is just insane. So visit Ghana and explore its connections to African American history. Whether you want a Ghana vacation or want to immerse yourself in the culture and history, you will not be disappointed. So I'm going to Ghana on Juneteenth for Ghanaian culture. All right. We know all the best places to visit in Ghana, so we will make your trip to Ghana an amazing travel experience. Now, this is one of those situations where it's pretty obvious who this is meant to target, but when you point it out, they, you know, main character, they tell you. Now I want to show this right here too, because this is from a page from a book, Transactions of a Historical Society of Ghana, the African American Factor in a Commodification of Ghana's Slave Castles. It's all about the money. Ghanaians have long perceived African Americans as a factor in Ghana's socioeconomic development. Ghana has long perceived African Americans as a factor in Ghana's socioeconomic development. Soon after Ghana's independence, the president invited these diaspora Africans to help with the country's development efforts. In recent years, the Ghanaian government has projected Pan-African issues in the legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, in particular to draw what government officials characterize as 40 million middle-income African Americans. That's what you are to the country. Conceptions about the African American factors seem to be premised on Pan-African images that essentialize brotherhood, cooperation, and togetherness. Adam says that's nothing but those horrible elders over there. Upper room ain't calling them home quick enough. But these people, this is from a book from 2002. I told you, this is actually longer than I said. They have been making this plan. And I'll say this, and I've said this before. Ghana was the smartest. I feel like with Nigeria, they became always like. They adopted Black American culture. Like, they talked a certain way. They, not all the way out, they have their own culture, but they have mixed in some of the Americanized things with their own culture. Like I said, I'll never forget, you watch reality from the African continent. You talking about Big Brother, and then you can Nigeria or some Nigerian reality show. They're the only ones that's nigga, walk around, pants sagging, the way they dress, the way they talk. They are clearly mimicking America. Ghana didn't do it that way. They don't mimic America that much. What they did was they didn't try to connect with you through pop culture. They decided to connect with you through emotions of the trend. Hey, you wanna come back home, don't you? You want to feel connected to something. So they try to be the bridge from that cultural standpoint of teaching you that through Pan-Africanism, you're lost. You need to find home. You need to go to your roots. That's the way they try to connect with Black America, and they've been more effective. Honorable says, what are they doing to center Brazil and the Caribbean in that narrative? Nothing. That's never been. And I'm not gonna act like it's not an obvious thing that it probably makes sense to center the people that's in the country that's the most powerful country in the world. I'm not gonna act like that's not an obvious point. But when people point that out, you can't make it seem like everybody who points out that what the President John Mahatma, whatever, all the stuff they're doing with the talk about the transatlantic slave trade, they have centered their talking points of Black America. So when people point it out, you can't make it seem like, oh, you're not the only slaves. You got the main character syndrome. Multiple countries were impacted by this. There's Black people outside of America. It's like, well, technically there's not, but that's not even the point. Yes, we know what happened in Brazil or South America and the Caribbean islands and stuff, but that ain't the stories y'all are centering. I had these discussions about global Blackness is always about how y'all participate in our culture. I just played Joyanne Reed, who went on a whole spiel about how Black people have this natural indigenous thing about them. They're naturally connected to certain things. And then she brought up gospel and Negro spirituals. It's like, that ain't everybody. They don't belong to everybody. That's not how it works. Anyway, this is the woman here to me who did a good job of explaining herself and made me look at this a little differently too. Because I'm not saying she said anything that was mind-breaking and you would never think of. It's just she said at a time where people constantly were focusing on Ghana trying to lead the charge. And she's like, no, this can also be, how y'all call it, they're trying to destiny swap with Black America. And she said, there's another way to look at this. What if the Europeans are trying to destiny swap with the Africans? Let me play what she had to say. Let me read what she had to say. So you see here, it says, this dude, he's a Marxist. I've been talking about Marxists for the last 2 months, so we know my opinion on them and what they're doing. He says, ADOS FBA have literally no understanding of how to win anything. Ghana winning their case would instantly justify the Black American reparations struggle. African nations elevating these stories with the UN have literally been a part of how we won these struggles here. Like I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with agreeing that them acknowledging certain things on the international level. But that ain't what's going on here completely. So this woman said, Lone Star Dixie. She said, you Black Marxists are such a joke. When you're so stuck on political theory that you never took any time to learn policy design or stratagems required to effectuate a political agenda. So let me school you. What Ghana did yesterday, and we must first look at the political affiliations. EU, which controls the African Union, of which Mahatma is the commissioner, so that we can dissect what actually happened yesterday. What she's talking about is this. The EU and Ghana signed a security and defense partnership. So Ghana went to the EU to do.
This is the first kind of its kind in African country. And it matters because security in Europe and Africa is deeply, deeply interconnected. The new allows us to work more closely in areas like counterterrorism, conflict prevention, cybersecurity. These are all areas that matter to our citizens.
So, Ghana signed a defense agreement with the EU. Now, we see Burkina Faso, they came out, kicked everybody out of their country, and then they started doing business with China and Russia, if I'm not mistaken. They started doing certain agreements with them and other Western countries. But apparently there was some type of an attack that Burkina Faso killed some Ghanaian, I don't know if it was citizens or military members or something. So that's what the Ghanaians are trying to blame it on, that there's a terrorist cell that's growing. And the reason why Ghana signed this deal is to cut that terrorist cell as soon as possible to get certain data, information, and, some training. So what she's talking about here is they just signed a deal with the EU, which that means the African Union, which is controlled by the EU, now has the dude who, what's his name, Mahatma, is the commissioner of the African Union. She said the EU controls the agenda of the AU. Mahatma, with the sanction of the EU, put on a 48-hour reparations pageant. Yet none of the European nations supported it. They all abstained, as we saw. Now it won't make sense to a neophyte like yourself. So let me explain. The West outmaneuvered Africa into making this declaration, knowing they were a slaving partner in the endeavor. Happens next is clarification. We will now have to clarify the terms and the stakeholders. When we do this, every participating African nation will be named, not as victims, but as partners and controllers of the trade. Checkmate. So wouldn't it be funny if Ghana went on the international stage of the UN, told them that this is the greatest crime against humanity, most of the world agreed, European abstained from it, and then in the next however many years or whatever, they do some investigations and they start talking about some stuff and they have some think tank meetings. And these Western nations start saying, you know what? You're right. We should make sure everyone who is involved is named, and we need to start dealing out some real reparations to people. And in the midst of that, the West decides, when you talk about Portugal and Britain in particular, they look at Nigeria, they look at Ghana, they look at these countries who have these kingdoms that used to be there, and they say, hey, you guys were a part of it. We were a part of it. So if we're guilty and you're guilty, we both should pay reparations. But here's the trick though. The Europeans, they can say, well, technically, you sold them to us. We bought property in a time where it was legal. Slavery was legal. So when it comes to the purchasing and the selling of slaves, we did no crime. It was y'all that gave us the access to the quote unquote product. So what if they put the whole bill, or at least attempt to, put the entire bill on Africa? I don't know, it felt like most of these votes were simply against Trump, honestly. No, I think the European countries in particular abstained from it because they're looking at this. If one of us agree, then we were all a part of it. You talk about Belgium, obviously Britain, the Portuguese, and you talk about France, all this, we were all part of colonization. So none of us can agree with this. Now we won't disagree because, we don't want to be seen as the villain right now. But all of them were a part of this, and they all stayed on code and just said they abstained from it. It just, only America, America do what they want to do. Israel, whether you believe Israel is America's lapdog for the Middle East, or if you believe America is Israel's lapdog, whatever you believe. And Argentina, we know what they're about. Argentina is one of the most, that's literally where the Nazis went. Said they already said that on the global news that Africans sold the slaves and not them. Yeah. But see, it's different for them saying it on their news and them saying it on the international courts. They're going to try to flip this. We'll see if they try and pull some technology out and try to convince the world. The argument then becomes, obviously, which one is worse? The person who's deliver the product or the person who buys it? Like which one is the true villain in the situation? I had whatchamacallit for the words. Was the system driven by European demand or an already built infrastructure? So they were already doing slave trading in West Africa. So is that the reason why this happened, or is it because we were looking for this? We'll see. We'll see how they're able to handle this, because I think there's gonna be some more that come from it. But yeah, if they find a way to flip this on them and make them pay the reparations, pay the whole bill, obviously America, Belgium, and stuff wouldn't get away completely. America would owe owe reparations to the Black Americans and a few others. Belgium would owe it to Congo and places. Britain would owe it to some places too. But if the big large portion of it come from them, that'd be crazy. All right, last segment I got. We're just gonna react to the chaos that came when President John Mahatma went to New York, and the people stood on business and showed up and let it be known. A couple people showed up and said they don't want him there. President Mahatma leads a wreath-laying ceremony at an African burial ground national monument in New York. They didn't want him. They told him to get the hell out. We don't want Ghana. That's the cheer they was using. We don't want Ghana. He had a speech that they pretty much interrupted it. They were playing music and stuff. They said they was singing the national anthem. They wasn't having none of it. But he did say at his other speech, he said, Ghana's president in New York says normalizing erasure of Black history. He talked about the history books changing certain history, blocking certain things from being taught, with the trials and tribulations that Black Americans went through in this country. He said this, but he's in America, so it makes sense that he would kind of speak on that for obvious reasons. But I want to read a little bit of his speech. He said, good morning. Amongst people of African descent throughout Diaspora, as well as the indigenous Africans in the continent, the collective ritual surrounding death as a communal experience from its announcement to its recognition through ceremony. If you travel to Africa, from the top of the continent to the bottom, it's met in most cities, towns, and villages. You will see notice of people's not small sanctuaries and newspapers, but flyers, posters, and billboards plastered all around. Listed on them is usually a litany of names of the bereaved, not just immediate relatives, but also names of extended family members, whether they are local, living abroad, or tribal in the communities. So he went on to say, we mourn as families, community, as nations, yada, yada, yada. He said, we lay down this wreath in honor of the memories of the nearly 20,000 Africans who are buried on this ground, some of whom were free, but most of whom enslaved, of the events that transpired here in New York, without also mentioning the events that occurred on the continent. He's connecting them, especially in my homeland, Ghana. These events are not separate stories, as we have been led to believe. These are parts of a single narrative, sometimes even happening concurrently. And it is a narrative that was quite literally branded, carved, burned, and beaten into the bones of people, human beings, included our ancestors who are buried here. Ghana has more than 30 slave castles and forts, more than any other African country. As such, there is highly probability that many of the African men, women, and children who were enslaved came through, if not from, the land that is now known as Ghana. One of those forts was built by the British in 1631. Enslaved Africans were transported. So he went on this whole thing. So you see the point of him doing this is to tie the history to the continent, and then he doing the whole thing about the global reparational push, obviously. But I've seen this. The FBA showed up to the protest the Ghanaian president's effort to have African enslavement declared a crime against humanity at the African burial ground by blasting America is Beautiful. Is certainly a choice. They also played the American national anthem, chanted African booty scratcher, and we don't vote, literally during a wreath-laying ceremony. Very unserious group. So let me play some of the reactions they had on social media to this. You hear him on the blowhorn in the back.
African descent throughout the diaspora, as well as indigenous Africans on the continent, the collective rituals, family members.
So while he's reading their speech, they were interrupting them. So you hear what they said about Mom Donnie? Your wife was calling us nigga while you was planning to be African American. So there's more here.
You're on Elk Street.
This is on TikTok Live.
In Manhattan.
Y'all that's up on the panel can't play strange fruit. So that way it can go into the atmosphere.
We got the family down here. We got Simon, Keita, a few others. I don't know everybody's name.
I will say this though. This is the first time I've seen this many people who follow this, who are public, who outside doing something. I think once it happened the first time, as the old saying goes, you let one in, there goes the neighborhood. So I do think you're going to see a lot more of people going around in the streets, talking this politics, talking this belief. And we've been seeing for years these people telling them, if you see you outside, they're going to put hands on them. So I'm hoping this doesn't turn violent. But unfortunately, I know how people work. So hopefully it's not something too severe. Honorable says, here's everything but the African booty scratcher. Why? Yeah, I don't know why they did that. They should have. See, that's the thing. You get people that get real excited about this and they just, they talking their shit, they popping their shit, and they just start saying stuff just to be antagonistic sometimes. There was no need to go that far. You stick to the politics, stick to calling out certain things, but
And it shows every day. We can tell when Yvette Clarke sits up there and fights for everybody but us. We can tell that you ain't our kinfolk. When you sit there and you see our people struggling and suffering, but you're sitting there giving $10 billion to people who have never paid 1 penny into this tax system. But you don't care. I see you laughing, and I hope the ancestors come up from the ground and tear your ass up.
He called for the ancestors.
This is graves. How would you feel about that? How would you feel about that? You wouldn't like it, but you feel the need to come over here, all the way over here, to be disrespectful on top of somebody else's grave. Now imagine if I came to Ghana and I just pissed all over your ancestors' graves. How would you feel about that? How would you feel about that?
So there's more. I think I got this one right here. Hold on.
We, the foundational Black Americans, have not received our reparations, cash reparations for foundational Black Americans. All others, you still stand, no support, no matter who you are. I thought I told you that we won't vote.
So they did say they won't vote.
Wasn't she talking bad about the white Jews? Damn, Mandami. You know, when I was in school, we used to sing something like this. Listen here, how you used to sing it, right?
So they was out there popping it. This is the last one I'm gonna show of an argument. I want to show this one. Now it turns out I found out that the woman in this video that was arguing actually was dating an African man, but I guess they broke up. So now she on the street. I'm not saying she's doing this because she was dating an African man. I'm just giving context to who she is. He dated one of these men. I don't know if he was Ghanaian. I guess he was Ghanaian. Now she on the streets calling out these Ghanaians over this reparations thing. Honorable says New York finally waking up. They better. The numbers ain't looking good. The way I've been seeing Caribbeans talk, because I don't live in New York, never lived in New York. But the way I've been seeing them talk, they kind of think they run shit up there. The way they talk, they know they're the majority. They don't care what you African Americans or Black Americans think up there. They, like I said, every time I see one of them talk about the FBA ADOS people, they always saying if I see one, they're gonna snuff them. They're very much saying this. Anwar says, what 112 had to do with this? Yeah, Negroes gotta add something. Yeah, I knew they played a lot of music up there, you know, taking songs and remixing into shit. That's just Negroes being Negroes. Let me play this one. I'm not gonna play this whole thing. It's too long. These videos is long as hell.
This is what you respond when they tell you are disrespectful. Fuck you.
So this woman is protesting, obviously, this meeting. She got up here. Black Americans supposedly yelled because I was talking about the horrible things happening to Black Americans in Ghana. Look at the sister behavior. She must have a Ghanaian husband. Well, you had a Ghanaian boyfriend, so.
African sellers, fuck you. Fuck you too. You dumbass. Yes, I'm gonna be yelling, bitch. Look at you. I'm standing up for black women. We will not disrespect the president. Fuck Ghana. Fuck Bahama. Fuck Bahama. Fuck you. Fuck Bahama. Fuck you.
So this woman here is arguing with her because she's saying she's disrespecting the president of Ghana. She, you know, they called it. This video is 6 minutes of them calling each other bitches and savages and all this other stuff. So it's not worth sticking to it. It's just a bunch of cursing and stuff. But I feel like she was there by herself, more than likely. She had a bullhorn and she stood on it. She was talking crazy to them people, and they couldn't get her up out of there. Let me play this one now.
I'm gonna try to keep it calm and not jump out of my body. You know what I mean? Because a couple years ago, this would have made.
He says the FBI is doing the white man's work for him, and I'm sick of y'all.
Me get out of character. With that being said, all of you Tariq Nasheed, FBA niggas is starting to piss me off. Technically speaking, I am FBA myself.
And there it goes. Every time you see these people that have this anger or disagreement with the FBA people, they always make sure to qualify it with I am FBA. That already tells you everything. The same way whenever you get into a debate or you see a debate between one of these FBA ADOS people, or not even just that, just a Black American with some level of ethnic pride, whenever they get into a debate with a foreigner, it always comes down to if you are or isn't. And they always call these people FBA ADOS. You could just be a regular Black American who ain't never heard this a day of your life, having a disagreement with them, and they'll just call you FBA, and they'll be like, what is this? What is that? Not a person looking it up. It's something they agree with, at least on the front of it, the front facing of it. Now you done push somebody else to agree with this ideology that you against because you called them this and they ain't got nothing to do with it. So the reason why you starting this video off with I'm FBA, I would be considered, is because you know that means your opinion matters more because you're Black American, which goes against really the Pan-African belief that everybody should be able to comment on, you know, somewhat on all these so-called African business. But you know that's not true.
Born and raised in America, 4 Black grandparents, all of them from America, all of their parents from America.
Qualify it.
Before y'all start that bullshit. So UN resolution regarding the transatlantic slave trade and reparations just got passed. You already see FBA people trying to spin it like Ghana is stealing reparations from African Americans. That's not what is happening, and y'all are doing the white man's work for him. If you go to the AU's website, you will see that this is a Pan-African initiative. The African Union, the Global African Diaspora, and peoples of African descent in the Caribbean. Nobody is trying to take food out of our mouths, bro. We're trying to unite for a cause. It's people on TikTok talking about Ghanaians never asked us how we felt about rape. Yes, the fuck they did. They have been having this discussion at the UN for 3 going on 4 years now. I know firsthand because I was there with a petition for reparations. And you know what you niggas was doing when this was going on? Y'all was too busy watching LeBron get his ass whooped by the Denver Nuggets to even care. If reparations is a goal that we actually want.
How the hell does he come out LeBron? Why did a random LeBron stray? Like, what is that for?
African American community. How are we gonna do it solo? Wouldn't it be better to team up with some other people just like us who got similar grievances?
Here's why, and it would not be a good way to team up with them. Honorable says, I hate the FBA is a white man BS. Immigration is the white man's tool to harm us. Where do they get where do they stand on that? Exactly. They not having kids. They need a workforce. That's why they're letting all these immigrants in. And they know it harms Black Americans. But no, it matters who you are bedfellows with. You can't just get in bed with anybody and just try and no. If you get in bed with Ghana and you say that our issues are connected, right? And as I just said in the last segment, Ghana and all these other people, if this goes forward and continues to get momentum, they're going to have to admit to participation. And you know another thing that Pan-Africans and Africans like to use against Black Americans when this topic come up, which is some African slavers were enslaved. So there's some people who were over there in Nigeria, over there part of those kingdoms that ended up, who were top dogs or leadership or whatever, who ended up as slaves and sold off into America. Some of them were sold off and then was able to get free, go back to Africa and continue the slave trade, but that's besides the point. So if we tied it together, not only will they will have to admit they were a part of slavery, they will have to make Black Americans come push the idea that we participated in our own enslavement. They were saying, well, who was a part of this? Who was a descendant of a slave trader, Black one, African one, versus who was a person whose family was just sold off and it had nothing to do with enslaving other people. So it would turn into a critique of ourselves if we got in bed with them. That's the point. But anyway,
advantage. But Africa has tremendous value in its land, and if they can unify and get together, I think it's got tremendous potential. I have a lot of very smart friends that they're putting everything into Africa.
Well, we saw that with Epstein. This is Trump saying that Africa has a lot of potential. Yeah, they do. Y'all been able to siphon a lot of their resources off, but you can't really get in there like you want to. Like they can't just go in there and just take it. Just really go in there with a couple thousand people on the ground, take over an area and just do it like you did in the Middle East with the oil and with the poppy fields. You can't really do that with Africa. You have to find some corrupt leader to sell you the mines and get their own citizens to go against all type of labor laws and working mines as children to find you some gold and diamonds and stuff. Like there's more diamonds in the world than there are that's sold. They purposely keep the number that's sold down so they can keep the price high. So they're literally, it's controlled by like 2 or 3 companies. And they do that with everything else in the African continent with all the minerals and resources they have. But they can't get out of their own way. But anyway, let me show this here.
Yeah, to every African American watching this video, to all the African Americans, wherever you are, you guys are going too far. You guys should stop the concerts and stop the disrespect. You are disrespecting the Ghanaian president and you are giving to Africa in general. And you guys shouldn't let us come for you guys. We don't care about your America or your African America or wherever you are. We don't give a damn. We know what most of you are going through there. Most of you are homeless and jobless. We know.
Most?
What the Ghana president went to do, if you guys wanted to do it, nobody stopped you from going to do it. And you know you could never do anything as such. You guys are going to where? Before somebody seeks for a reparation, do you know the power that has to be behind that person?
And what power is behind Ghana?
Or do you think you guys could have gone and seek for something? Did somebody stop you guys? And then you want to use this. We don't blame you guys. We blame these politicians. We blame them for giving citizenship and year of return. And if they don't come, no money. They shouldn't come. We have money here. Do you know what we have in Africa here? Don't come with your tourism. Don't come with your money. You are coming. Don't come. Don't come. If you won't come to Africa as an African American, don't come.
Now, he's saying all this shit. Now, you look on the back, look at his back wall there. I guess it's supposed to be some type of Pan-African wall. You have Martin Luther King over your left shoulder. You have Martin Luther King over your left shoulder, who, by the way, is the most impactful person in that picture.
Don't use this as an opportunity and we come to Africa and we buy land and we buy house and they thievery, they are thieves, they are this. No, from today, no, you all shouldn't come.
And it's funny he mentioned that land thing. There's been a lot of beef going on. I showed a video last week where they were accusing Black Americans of gentrifying Accra, Ghana. So they're coming in and buying land and stuff, and the price is skyrocketing, almost like the South. It's happening in the South when you got all these Northerners moving down south. So they're saying the same thing over there because that's not how you supposed to integrate another group into a society. It's always, especially when it comes from a country whose dollar measures up to that level to your own currency. It's always going to be an imbalance. So what the complaints he's making right here, he just kind of went on a rant, I guess, because the niggas is keeping it real with his president. But this don't make sense. But he's telling you, don't come to his country. They don't want you. They don't care. They worried about them and theirs. He's looking at that. You should be happy. You should be grateful that we're even going to the UN doing this bullshit. It's funny they got rid of the other president. I ain't heard nothing from him either. Why do I got this here? I don't know why I got this here. Luke Campbell apparently is actually running for office. I don't know why I got this here. I guess I left this here by accident. By the way, this picture he used is AI. He didn't go get a suit, go to a photo shoot, take a picture, and have somebody put overlays over this. He just used AI to create this. It's just Uncle Luke. Do I want to show these last two? Yeah, I'll show this last video here. And I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna put this last video. Hold on.
Jambalaya is an American dish. But there's some history behind that a lot of people don't know. The jambalaya is actually an offshoot of jollof rice. So like the enslaved people, West Africans that were in Louisiana at the time, wanted to make their version of jollof rice because they knew from back home, but didn't have the same ingredients. So they had to improvise. People
already broke this down and exposed this because obvious reasons. Tomatoes was an American plant, so that jollof didn't exist because they didn't have tomatoes in Africa. So no, it's not the same.
They use the ingredients that they had in Louisiana.
But that's not the main point. I want this next point he about to make.
It is very poetic and symbolic because you said it has less taste or flavor to it.
Yeah.
And so it's like what came before it from Africa is the potent, and what was passed down through everything else ended up being diluted.
They've been trying to say this for years. They keep pushing this narrative that Black American culture and Black American cuisine and everything is just a diluted version of what's on the African continent. And it's just, I said this before, when it comes to countries like South America and the Caribbean countries, whenever they speak on the similarities between them and Black America, it's always from the standpoint, to me, this is my opinion, validate themselves. Start to validate Black Americans. They think they're doing Black Americans a favor by saying, hey, that dance that you do, or that food that you cook, or that holiday you celebrate is similar to the one we do. They think they're adding validity to Black American culture by saying we do something similar, which is, we don't need your validity. I think it's the opposite with people from West Africa. I'm not sure they are West African, but for some reason I get Nigerian energy from them. Maybe Senegalese energy from them. I'm not sure. But whenever an African person compares their culture to Black Americans, number one, they try to sun us. They try to make it seem like, you come from us. Everything you do come from us. And they always, it's like they try to validate their own culture through Black Americans. Like when they talk about the musicality and the expression of Black Americans, they always say, yeah, you got it from us. It's like they're only comparing it because where it ranks in the world. Because Black American expression is the head of pop culture on the planet, they try to validate their own status as in their own culture through saying, you got that from us. So while the Caribbeans do it to think they're giving you validity, the Africans, to me, do it because they think they're getting validity from us. It's a terrible thing to see. I said it before, when the dude who used to go back and forth or try to go back and forth with Black Acres of Gambia, he used to make hit piece videos all the time. He was like, why are you bothering those people? And he was like, heavy is the head that wear the crown. Black Americans are the head of this thing, they're the face of this, so they're going to have a lot of critique. So whenever you see those people from other countries constantly critiquing the image of Black Americans with the baby mama, baby daddy stuff. To me, it's always because they think, because their culture, even though they're all the way over there across the pond and they got their own culture that's been there for hundreds of years, and they're still seen as a culture of Black American culture. And it's like, y'all come from us. How the hell we a subculture to y'all? It's like, so I get the frustration and sometimes the insecurity that can come out, but yeah, it's crazy. Honorable says the insult is the watered down, less flavor from people who use palm oil. When I tasted a few years ago, that was like last year for the first time, did jollof rice, and after years, people talk about all the seasoning and it's so perfect and great. Man, I tried that jollof rice. I'm like, bruh, my mama growing up used to cook something so basic, tomatoes and rice. It had way more flavor than this shit y'all got here. It's literally just, it tastes like hot tomatoes and rice. That's it. Spicy. It's not that seasoned. It's not just the most delicious thing ever that you could eat a whole pot of. It's like, bruh, this is the best you got? What we doing? Anima also said, I think the bottom guy is a Caribbean, maybe Jamaican comedian. I feel like I see him making video with a Jamaican did verses. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's why when he said it down there, he sounded more, like I said, like they're a little bit more dismissive. Like it's not real culture. It don't got no flavor, that type of stuff. But the dude at the top, I'm confident. Maybe I'm wrong. He might be Black American. I don't know. But I'm confident his energy says he's definitely either Nigerian or Senegalese. And his energy came off more so trying to prove the continent's culture, trying to prove West African validity. But yeah, that's just my opinion. But anyway, first hour of this was freezing and shit. Hopefully I'm gonna have to edit some stuff out this on my own. But we got through it. I'm gonna make sure I have these clips uploaded next week too. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the show. I'm about to get out of here, let y'all go. I'm starting to get back in a rhythm with being able to talk this long without. It's funny. I went 3 weeks without an episode, and now I'm struggling to get through these episodes because throat getting dry as hell. Tea and everything ain't working for nothing. But anyway, she said top nose is definitely Nigerian. Definitely is. Definitely Nigerian. But anyway, thank y'all for coming through. Appreciate the support. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. As always, I'm going to make sure I get some clips out of this. Make sure you support it. If you didn't see the whole thing, watch the replay if you didn't see it. As always, y'all be safe. Please like it on your way out. Subscribe if you're not. Share it if you can. And as always, y'all be safe. All praise to the Most High. Peace, man.